But we go through that and we see that society does really fail in the promises and how we respond. You mentioned that as we self-medicate, which is something that I'm seeing more and more people dealing with. I mean, the stats don't lie. We're some of the most anxious people that have been on the planet in our time. And even though we have all the modern things that should help it, we're really not.
Yeah.
Why introduce this though? And have you got a response to people saying, okay, no, that's, because some people will respond and say, you don't know what you're talking about. I mean, we deserve this. We need this. Have you had that, or am I way off there?
With the self-medication?
Yeah.
I haven't really. I think for the most part, one of the early readers was a little skeptical that we all self-medicate, but I think that was more of a rhetorical move. I'm sure somebody out there doesn't self-medicate, but but I think for the vast majority of us in the West, in some way or another, in some harmful way, we are self-medicating. And I tried to offer an expansive definition because we tend to have this very narrow view, and I think it tends to be a sort of classist view of self-medication, right? So we tend to think, well, I'm not an alcoholic and I'm not smoking weed or doing heroin or something like that, so I'm not self-medicating. But when we include thing like shopping therapy, what's it called? Is that what it's called? And when we include things like binge watching, and when we include things like doom scrolling, and
doom scrolling, what's that? Just scrolling forever and seeing bad headlines or something?
That's right. Yeah, when you're sort of addicted to watching the horrible, awful news, which seems like it would be the opposite of self-medicating, because you're focused on the terrible political things that are going on around you and in the world, right? You're constantly reading the worst news about what's going on with past presidents, hypothetically, or what's going on in Ukraine or whatever, with viruses or inflation. How would that be self-medicating? But what it does is it gets the pressure off of you, right? We talked about this, right? So how do you cope with these things that you feel, these pressures of belonging to yourself? Well, you externalize them. You focus on what's going on externally in the world, which you can't really do anything about. And there's a freedom in that, right? If I'm obsessively focused on what an out of control politician is doing, there's a relief in that, because then all I can do is rant myself on social media, but I don't really have any agency. But that's liberating. That's liberating, because I can, on the one hand, feel like I'm doing something, but on the other hand, I'm not doing anything meaningful. But I'm distracting myself from all this angst and anxiety and pressure that's really bottling up inside of me, that I'm trying to bottle up inside of me. So yeah, even doom scrolling can be a kind of way that we self-medicate. So I really haven't had many people push back against that. Once I've introduced the idea and given a long enough list and acknowledged that a lot of these things, like I think exercise can be a way we self-medicate. And a lot of these things can be good and healthy. Reading things in the news can be good and, is good and healthy. But there are ways of doing these things that are forms of medication, ways that we distract ourselves from and cope in unhealthy ways. Once we acknowledge that, I think a lot of people say, oh, gosh, man, that hits, that resonates. So far, I haven't. I'm sure somebody has found that objectionable. They just haven't written to me.